If you are a therapist or you're working your way towards becoming a therapist, then you know how important it is to have a clinical supervisor. Now, to find the right clinical supervisor, that is the challenge. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to find the right clinical supervisor for you, where to start your search, and what to look for. If you're new here, welcome. I share videos about building a career as a therapist, so make sure to subscribe for more tips. The first thing that you have to do before actually searching for a clinical supervisor is making sure that you understand the requirements put in place by your regulatory body about what a clinical supervisor has to have, the credentials they have to have in place in order for your hours to be approved. Where I'm from, it's important for the clinical supervisors to have at least 5 years experience of practicing therapy. In other places, other states, provinces, different regulatory bodies have different requirements. And so in other places, it could be that your clinical supervisor actually has to go through a clinical supervision training to be qualified as a clinical supervisor and for your hours to actually count. So make sure you check your board's website to ensure you understand what requirements are needed for your clinical supervisor. Now, where do you find a clinical supervisor? Here are 3 places to start. The first thing that comes to mind is a professional directory. So things such as Psychology Today or Therapy Den or even your professional organization's board. On these sites, people list the services that they offer. So if you're looking, for example, on Psychology Today, you can type in clinical supervisor in insert the state or province or city that you're located in so that you can have a supervisor if you want one that's in person. And if the location doesn't necessarily matter, then you don't have to type in necessarily the location either. So clinical supervisor, and then a whole list of clinical supervisors will be populated. Now you have to make sure that you're doing your due diligence on these websites, because sometimes people might have clinical supervisor under their title, but they might not actually be qualified to be a clinical supervisor based on your regulatory body. So that is why step 1 is super important. The second place you can look is within your own professional network. So that could be asking your professors, that could be asking colleagues within your field or other therapists that are in your area or that are working in a specialized niche that you're interested in working in. Asking those people who they refer, who they recommend, who they've used, and the reasons why, so that you can also seek out the support of those clinical supervisors. The third place you can look are Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups. There are specific groups that are dedicated to people looking for clinical supervisors in specific areas or even specific niches. And so I think it's super important that you go join these groups. You can meet other people as well. There's so many benefits to being part of these groups, but you can even just type in, hey, I'm looking for a recommendation for clinical supervisors. That is how I found one of my latest clinical supervisors that I found to be super helpful. Or you can even type in the search bar clinical supervisor and see what's populated in the group, so you can already see the options that are available to you if you are not willing to wait for an answer or response. Now, not all clinical supervisors are created equally. So here are some things to consider when choosing one. Their experience and specialization is super important. Now, are you interested in the area of CBT, DBT, couples therapy, trauma? Do these clinical supervisors that you're reaching out to have a specialization in these areas? Do they have experience working in these fields? What does their experience look like? It's super important that you match their experience and specialization with what it is that you are specifically looking for. And for example, if you're starting out as a new therapist and working towards just building your repertoire and understanding a vast majority of different clinical approaches, for example, it's important then to have a therapist or a clinical supervisor that also has a broad range where they can teach you and educate you on that information. The next thing is their approach to supervision. Some clinical supervisors are very reflective and they're very helpful in terms of reflecting with you on your experience in therapy sessions. Some are very structured and directive. They're going to tell you, hey, this is what we're going through today. This is what this process looks like. This is how you need to go through and work through with this client. And some are very collaborative, so they can go back and forth with you depending on what is coming up for you and what you're experiencing as a therapist in your specific sessions. All of these things are important for you to consider, and it's super important for you to also understand what it is that you need from a clinical supervisor. Just like whenever we're at a certain job, we can figure out, hey, I really like this managerial style, or I don't like this managerial style. That's the same thing with clinical supervision. And so something I also want you to understand is that it can be trial and error before you figure out like, hey, I actually like this style of clinical supervision. The other thing that I think is important to consider when choosing a clinical supervisor is the cost and affordability. Now, we all know our degree to become a therapist within our master's degree or whatever the process is for you, wherever you are located, is costly. It is not cheap. And so you have to consider the cost and affordability for yourself. I think it's important when you're choosing a clinical supervisor as well, again, making sure you are aware of what your regulatory body states in terms of what clinical supervision hours count for you. It's important to ask things such as, hey, do you have group sessions? Can I do therapy with another therapist to make the cost more affordable? Or is it just one-on-one? And again, that also depends on what your needs are at this time. Do you prefer to have one-on-one clinical supervision, or are you okay with having things such as dyadic supervision or group supervision? Right? So certain things to consider, and the larger the group, the more affordable supervision tends to be. Overall, you want someone who challenges you and supports you. You having the right clinical supervisor makes a world of a difference in your growth as a therapist. Once you find a potential clinical supervisor, I personally recommend creating a short list of about 3 to 5 clinical supervisors to reach out to. You can send them an email and just say something along the lines of, hi, my name is such and such. I'm interested in clinical supervision. I would love to know more about your approach to clinical supervision. Do you offer a free consultation? But once you actually have a consultation set up, this is an opportunity for you to see if your needs and wants align with the approach that this clinical supervisor uses. Overall, finding the ideal clinical supervisor is an important step in your career as a therapist. So make sure you take your time and you choose wisely. If you want a series of questions to ask during your consultation, make sure you are subscribed so that you can see my next video where I will provide you with a list of questions to ask during your consultation. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more career tips. I'll see you on my next video. Bye.